started a 18-year bit. And when they like I said, August 24th, 2006, they arrested me at they caught me at the second house, the correction officer's house I had hit first. And then I was coming back toward Columbus, and I seen another house, and I thought I could get that one too. Pulled my car up in the garage, shut the garage door, and half an hour later, I'm still in the house. Silent alarm been going off, and they come to the back door that I had kicked in. It's a cop with a dog, and I come out to the garage. I see him. I'm like, oh. I shut the door. He like, come out with your hands up. I'm looking at him like through the window panes, like, hold on 1 second. And then I hit the garage door opener, jump in my car, shut the door, get to rolling my window up because I know this dog about to jump in the car. Instead, it was another cop, kicks in the door, puts the gun 2 feet away from my head. Turn the car off. Turn the car off. And back then, bruh, man, they had me dead to rights to kill me.
Right.
Hey, Lou, I'm a person, I'm a recovering drug addict, I want to tell my story. How do I do that?
Well, Aaron, it's as simple as emailing us at getagrippodcast614@gmail.com or going to our form fill in our link tree and filling it out.
That easy, huh?
That easy. And then you can come on and share your story.
We got an empty chair waiting for you.
What else should they do?
Guys, as recovering addicts, we're open to feedback, right? So please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel.
Share, comment, please. And if you're already a subscriber, we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
And if you're not, we don't.
We are back with another episode of Get a Grip Podcast. We have Dion Evans with us. Dion actually was with us previously about a year and a half ago, shortly after you got out of the halfway house, following an 18-year prison sentence.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For 2 burglaries. No one in the houses, but one of them was a correctional officer's house. And
That's right.
August 24th, 2006 was the day that my life was saved. And it was the day that I got incarcerated for those crimes. And though my decisions affected so many people, it gave me an opportunity to grow up. And
you don't hear that often, that the day your life was saved was the day you were incarcerated. You don't hear a lot of people say that.
And I think when you start taking accountability, that you humbleize yourself and realize that things could have been a lot different had you not been incarcerated.
Yeah.
You know, and not to say like I didn't have a lot of life or death experiences while I was locked up. I still had an opportunity to see things in myself that I never would have seen had I still been on the streets.
Right. Well, take us back to childhood and tell us how you grew up. Give us an idea of what molded you into the man you became.
Well, I'm originally from Steubenville, Ohio.
Okay.
My mother and myself, we came up here to Columbus to my uncle and aunt's house in Brittany Hills when I was 3. And my mother and father had split very, very quickly as teenagers. My mother was 16. My father was 18.
When they had you?
My mother was 17 when she finally had me, but my father was 18, 19.
Damn.
And his parents, also, all of them are from Steubenville. They brought him up to Columbus and put him in the military. And they weren't, there was so much going on. Being from a small city, you know, the stigma that came from a teenager having a child was definitely still taboo. And I'm 44 years old, so in 1981, it was very taboo.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, so my mother, she was such a strong woman, but also a teenager trying to find her way.
Kid.
Yes, a kid having a kid. And, you know, the world was a lot different. The drugs were a lot different, but it was still a village that helped to raise my mother and a village that helped to raise me ultimately. Me and my mom, we basically grew up together. And coming up here to Columbus, my uncle, her brother, and my aunt let us first move in with them, and then my mother ended up getting her own place in Capitol Park.
Okay.
And so a lot of times I would still be at my uncle's and aunt's house, and they were educated. My aunt was a professor, and they taught all of the children, especially that were coming to their houses, different elements of what life would bring. So before I even started preschool, they had me doing math and reading, had all of us speaking Swahili,
Wow.
and pushing us in ways that we probably never would have had we been with our young parents.
Right.
My aunt and mother put me into um, African dancing with a gentleman named Tony West at 4 years old. And I ended up dancing at Martin Luther King Center off of Mount Vernon, and was put in the newspaper at that time and on the news. And my mom, she didn't have my father there, so she seemed to put me in as many boy things that she could.
Was your father completely out of the picture?
Nah, he became more of a individual that paid his child support, and every once in a while would come
show
get me
up.
and stuff. Him and my mother, they had their own struggles, and he was in the military. He ended up staying in the military for 12 years,
Oh, wow.
and he started going to school. First to be a RN, and then he got his doctorate
Wow.
in psychology, and was a professor at Columbus State, Dayton University, O State. He got his PhD from Ohio State. But him and my mother, they never got back together and stuff. But they co-parented to an extent, but it was me and my mother more than anything.
Okay.
And since he wasn't in the household, there was a lot of things I didn't know as a child of how to be a boy, teenager, or a man.
Yep.
And so we ended up moving to the south side of Columbus off of Parsons when I was 5. And it started my journey, of really exploration. Seeing the neighborhood was very diverse. It was all different type of cultures that lived in that environment. And in the 80s, you still had trick-or-treating where kids were out at nighttime trick-or-treating. You still had, family, neighbors.
Normal shit.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
Neighbors were more so still able to discipline you. Maybe not put their hands on you, but scold you and get out the street.
We were talking about that the other day, how when people used to come to your door, you'd be excited. Like,
Yes.
oh, who's the door? Someone's here. They'll go out to play. And now when people come to your door, you fucking hide.
Yes.
Like DoorDash, they
Right.
come to your door and you're like, are they fucking
Are
gone? Are
they
they
short?
gone?
Right.
All right, they're gone.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
And you could go to people's houses unannounced.
Yeah.
Now it's definitely a culture shock for many individuals like myself that came out of prison.
Yeah.
But my mom involved me in so much in the 80s and 90s that it helped to cultivate the man that I had become today. And she had me on TV multiple times, and I was artist. I loved to draw, and so she would let me go to the library. I rode the bus. It seemed like since I was like 7, 8 years old. But I would go to the library and get drawing books. And when I was in the 5th grade, I had drawn a picture with another gentleman of Dr. Martin Luther King with children surrounding him, holding hands. And it won a contest and was put on Columbus Coda buses for a year.
Oh,
on the
wow.
side. And when I was 10, my mother taught me how to play chess. And she told me, Dion, I want you to learn this game as a way of life. And, at a 10-year-old 6-year-old's mind, I didn't really necessarily understand what she was saying, but she had broke it down to the extent of knowing that these pieces can always be one of your decisions that affects you completely or helps you completely.
Yeah.
And so I learned how to play chess from her, and eventually I started beating her.
Hmm.
And so she sent me to school. They had tournaments going on at Reeb Elementary. And I was too late for the tournament, but the guy that had won the tournament came back to our school, and I beat him. And around that time also was Reaganomics. Reagan was our president,
Yep.
and Just Say No
Yep.
was the thing going on with his wife. And so I was a part of a singing group that was Just Say No.
Hmm.
And, you know, in those times, we had a lot of house parties and things of such that we would go to. And, you know, drugs, alcohol, everything was always there, but it wasn't to the extent that it has become. But, you know, family members smoking weed and drinking beer. And me being a young kid, I can remember running up to the table, asking my uncle, can I have a drink? And, you know, the innocence of it, to me, I didn't realize the implications of what was going on with the adults that were dealing with addictive personalities.
Yeah.
The first thing that I had really ever done, I mean, I was a kid that when at that time when your gums was hurting, they put rum on your gums and stuff, and they did what they could, learning how to be adults themselves, but taking care of a child. And my mom, she was the strongest woman that I knew, you know, and beside her was my aunt Isabel Dawson, and she was in a wheelchair. And so when my mom would have me over at my aunt and uncles, they would let her go live a little and, you know, come into her adulthood without having the strain as much of me right there. And so they would kind of take that energy off of her and gave me an opportunity to not see that side of my mother, how she was struggling and stuff. Because when you're that young, you don't understand poverty.
No.
You know, you see what's coming into the house, and my mom, she always seemed to make a way out of no way. And I didn't understand that she was going to different organizations at Christmas time, and we had moved to Section 8 housing and food stamps back then, you know, the colorful money. I didn't even like being seen with that going to the store. But boy, you give me some food stamps today, boy.
Mm-hmm.
But back then it was different. And I remember my mother started working at Schottenstein's off of Parsons, and that was a secondhand store.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to elementary, and I got Schottenstein's clothes on, or I got thrift store clothes on, and the kids are so cruel, you know. And I'm just trying my best to fit in and to make do with what I have. But something that my aunt used to do was when I would go over on the weekends, she would make sure I cleaned around the house, and she would give me some like $10, and we'd go to Northern Lights, to the flea market, to the thrift store. And when we would go to the thrift store, she would let me buy some clothes with the money she gave me, and then she would take me over to the paint store, and they would have little different type of nozzles I could use, and she would take me and let me paint my own clothes, make
really?
my own stuff. And I remember in like 99, 2000, a company I think called Mystique came out, and that's what they were doing, was making handmade type of designs on clothes and stuff, and was getting paid big money for it. And I was like, man, I was doing this back in the 80s, man.
Right.
But it gave me a sense of standing out, trend setting kind of from a young kid. I didn't have the best of things, but I would make what I had good. And I ended up getting hit by a car
Damn.
when I was 9 or 10 years old, and I remember that really being a drunk driver had hit me on Parsons Avenue, and it was the very first time I was going across Parsons. My mom had told me, "Don't go across Parsons."
The first time you crossed
The
Parsons,
very first time.
you got hit.
And so it was like she must have sent that guy. But my mom came, a friend of mine that was with me ran back to the house, and she came running through the alleys and everything to get to me with no shoes on. Like she was my best friend. She was my guardian angel. She was my everything. And she went and started beating up the guy that was a drunk driver that had hit me with his car, and I flew back and I ended up hitting my head, skidding my head on the ground. And that was the very first head injury that I can really remember that changed me. And up to that point, I had played all sports, basketball, football, baseball, and really basketball was something that I really loved. And I can remember in the 5th grade, like I was so into it. Like I wanted to go to the league type stuff, but I was a skinny short guy. But I remember I grabbed the rim when I at this recreation center across the street from my house that I grew up at called the Southside Settlement, and I touched the rim when I was in the 5th grade. That head injury, my mom started to baby me. She didn't want me to go outside. She cooking me food, and I'm laying on the couch eating, and I just started picking up weight. And what I also didn't understand was that something in my head had changed. I had went from a straight A student in elementary, and then going into junior high, couldn't keep up with 2.0.
Hmm.
And things just started to change. The way that I was starting to get involved with my neighborhood was a little bit different. I started seeing that I could steal. I started seeing that I was sneaky, and I remember I was raised with respect. Yes sir, yes ma'am. Well, I started using yes sir, yes ma'am as a manipulative tool. Yes sir, yes ma'am could break down walls.
Yeah.
And so I started to find myself doing that and getting into people's houses and would steal a necklace here or $5 here. And I ended up stealing from my 6th grade teacher. Her went in her purse and she had a money bag, and come to find it was her son's newspaper money.
Mm.
And another kid ended up telling on me because we went to the skating ring, United States skating ring, and I started splurging on everybody, buying pizza and stuff, and I just wanted to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy ended up telling on me, and they took me up, my mom and me, and took us up to Berry Middle School and had an intervention. They had him and his mom there, and shoot, I lied and said he stole it with me. Like I was like, you telling on me, I'm lying on you then. And you know, it was the beginning of something that I started to do a lot of. We didn't have a lot. WIC was still being put on the doorsteps. I used to run and steal the food off of other people's sidewalk or steps and stuff, and while my mom would be asleep upstairs, and she was dealing with her own issues. And drugs definitely was a part of our equation.
What was she using? Do you
Well,
know?
Yeah, I really didn't find out. Let me say this. I really didn't find out until I was an adult. Almost, I was like 18, 19 years old. But from what I understood was just marijuana and alcohol.
Okay.
Found out it was more later. But it answered a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You know, and my mom, she was someone that I always looked up to and valued, and she was an innovative, strong woman that would start a lot of things, and then she would get bored with things pretty quickly. And she I remember she had a block party in my neighborhood. Like, she shut down the whole street, got permits for it, got the radio station down there and everything. And it was the type of woman my mother was. She was a community activist. She ended up opening up a business called DLD Debt Management, working on people's finances while we still living in Section 8. And what really changed the narrative was when I was 11 years old, my sister was born. And we had different fathers. And my sister was born a diabetic and clinically blind in one eye. And so this woman that had been my best friend, had been my guardian angel, had been my everything, now had to give that energy to a daughter that was sick. And my mom, when she's in something, she's in it. And so she was in all the classes, and she got my sister a part of the Juvenile Diabetes Association, and like me, made sure that my sister was involved with a lot of different programming and as such. And what it did also was made me feel like I wasn't number one anymore. I wasn't, that light in her eye. And not long after that, I was put into Scared Straight at 12 years old. And I had to go through the counseling. And I remember we would be driving to the short north to the counseling center, and we would stop at the gas station almost every time. And I'm like, okay, Ma, I'll go pay. She'd give me the money, and I'd go inside and steal candy and pay for the gas, come back out, get in the van or the car that she had, and we would get to the place, and I would pass out the candy to the kids that are in Scared Straight with me. And it was something that I had an addiction to, but I didn't understand addiction. I didn't understand addictive personalities. But a little while later, I was at the rec center about a year later, and a gentleman came through named Erie Chapman. He had a TV show on NBC called Life Choices. And he was going around to all the recreation centers in Ohio and was campaigning for the United Way organization. And they were going to give one recreation center $100,000, who they felt like was serving the community the best. And so he was given a tour with a group of people, and as they came through, I was in one of the rooms, and we were painting. And so he went around, they was introducing him to kids, and I just happened to be by the door that they were going to leave. And so they stopped, and he introduced himself, I introduced myself, and he asked me a question, and I really don't remember everything of the conversation, but what I said to him was, can you rephrase the question, because I don't understand what you're asking me? And he sat back a second, and he looked at me, and then he rephrased the question, and I answered it, and he said, it was very nice to meet you, and they walked up the stairs and went out the door. Later on that week, they called the rec center and said they wanted to get in contact with me. So we lived right across the street. And so someone ran across, got me. I came over. They put me on the phone. He said, how you doing? This is Erie Chapman. He's like, I would like to meet you. And I'm like, yes, sir. I'm going to ask my mom. So I went and got my mom, and she got on the phone with him. And he's like, I'm the president of Riverside Hospital, and I would like to take your son on this campaign with me. Can you bring him up here to Riverside Hospital? So she agreed, and he ended up giving me a tour. She took me up there. He gave me a tour of Riverside Hospital. They had me in, remember they had candy stripers at Children's Hospital back in the day? Well, this was something similar to that, and they had me in a doctor's outfit with the green hat on, and I really felt something I had never felt before. I have always had people in my life, like I said, the village that raised me. I always had people in my life that seen something in me that I didn't see in myself, and that will pour into me to the best of their understanding. But that was also the crackheads, the winos, the prostitutes. That was off of Parsons Avenue. So not only was it direct coordinators and counselors and family members and stuff, but it was my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able, because we had the guys that were still kind of new into crack, that were playing basketball with us, still cutting grass, and was still out there a part of the community and didn't look like the scab of the community.
Mm.
So dealing with Erie Chapman, he took me on a campaign with him. He said they wanted me to draw a picture to put a part of their campaign. And so I drew a painting of a flower coming out of a pot. But the flower was in the form of a heart. So it came out the pot and it went into a heart, and it said, "Give hope and watch it grow." And so he had given me an opportunity to speak at on a stage behind a podium at an event. And he ended up giving me a scholarship to college while I was in the 7th grade. And he took me to a Ohio State Michigan game. And it was a year that we ended up winning against them. And I said, I'm the reason why. Everyone was like on the 50-yard line. And, you know, it was surreal because everybody, you know, they talked about the Buckeyes. And I love sports. And then to be put in that position, I was able to see something that I never would have seen had I not met this individual.
Right.
And then for him to bless me with things that other people in my neighborhood weren't getting. There was things that people were seeing in me. And I had started going to a church at 8 years old in Canal Winchester called Heritage Baptist Church. And with a family named the Barretts. And they were from my neighborhood, a white family that they lived right up the street from me. And it was 4 boys, and one of them was more my age, the other one a couple years younger, and a couple years younger than that. And we all kicked it. We all went to this recreation center. Like, the neighborhood knew each other from this rec center. And a lot of us went to Reeb Elementary, Berry Middle School. So I started going to this church, and my mom, she wasn't going to church really too much anymore. But it became my every Sunday I was on the church bus and I was going. Well, what ended up happening is I got into it so much at Berry Middle School, and what I told you is that I couldn't keep a 2.0. Like, I would make the basketball team, and I would always get cut because I couldn't keep that 2.0. But what I did do is I found a lot of time in peak or in school suspension, and they stopped calling my mom, so she wasn't even knowing how much I was in. But going back to Reaganomics, No Child Left Behind was going on. So I was being pushed forward to the next grade and to the next grade. Regardless. Yeah. So I got into it with a teacher that told me to throw my chewing gum away when I was in 8th grade. And I act like I threw it away and went back to my seat. And then she said, she seen me again. She said, put it on my nose. I said, I'm not putting no gum on my nose. And so she said, throw it away and you bring 10 sentences tomorrow saying I won't never have chewing gum in. So the next day comes, I didn't write the sentences. So they called my mom up and they put me in a room and with the 2 teachers, the lady and a guy named Mr. Pro, the biology teacher. And he gets to talking, pointing at me in my face, and my mom pushes his arm away, and it turned into a whole big thing. Police got called, and my mom ended up taking me out of that school. And so now we got to think, where am I going to go? And I'm like, well, Heritage has a Christian school, also a part of it. And so it was $2,000 a year, and I asked, I said, well, maybe we could ask Erie if I could have him pay for me to go to school now than college. And so she agreed with me to call. I called him, He said, I don't know. You asked me for the money now. And so he said, let me call you back. He called back. He said he'll pay for 2 years. My mom has to pay for the other 2 years. Plus, she had to pay for summer school because I was leaving the 8th grade going into the 9th grade. She also had to pay for my uniforms and my school books. So she agreed, and I started going to Heritage. Now, Heritage was kindergarten through 12th, and there was 60 students in my class from like 5th or 6th grade to 12th grade. But there was 5 teachers. So you got 60 students with 5 teachers, 12 students per teacher. It was a whole different world.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to even have 12 students at one time that need help. So I was able to get one-on-one type of help at that moment.
Okay.
And what that did was help me end up graduating with a
Catch
3.6 GPA. And that was one of the lowest of my graduating class, in which we only had like six or 8 people that graduated.
Wow.
But it was only 115 on the average students kindergarten through 12. And it was a predominantly white church. I was a bus kid, so I never really fit in. But there were certain kids there, the McCoys, the Lyons, the Hayeses, that took a liking and a loving to me and would bring me over to their houses, Grubbs, in Lithopolis, Ohio, Lancaster, Canal Winchester. And I got to see kind of what the middle class or well-off lived like. And so I'm coming back to Parsons, I'm seeing what poverty looked like, but then I'm getting to go here. So I found myself wanting to be out there more, kicking it with my friends after school, before church. We
Makes
got,
sense.
Wednesday teen service. And so I found myself more out there. And if I wasn't there, I would be more in that rec center. And what ended up happening is that rec center ended up getting that $100,000. So this man ended up giving me a scholarship to college. He gave that rec center the $100,000, and to them, I was the man.
Yeah.
Well, in that same energy, they had PIC. It was a summer program that you cleaned up the neighborhood, but they picked rec centers and stuff to have the headquarters. Well, when I was 15, I ended up working there and went in the safe and stole money out the safe, out the rec center. And so it was like, I didn't care about the people and what they were doing for me. I just seen a way to have something. And then I end up spending the money on people that's the kids, the teenagers that's with me. And like, I just wanted to be liked so much. And I was such a people pleaser that I found myself just doing things just to be a part of. And so the more I got invested into that Christian school and church, I started going soul winning. We're going door to door. I know the Romans road by heart. I'm leading people to Christ. But then I'm going back to my neighborhood and I start gangbanging. And I'm repping the Lincoln Projects Bloods, but I don't take that to my school.
Right.
So for some years, I had an identity crisis. I wasn't sure really who I was. I just knew I was capable of a lot of things, good or bad. And my mom, she more so had started to invest in my sister because she had to, and I started going out into the streets more. And the streets became what I thought was family. The friends that I grew up with, the Howards, the Yates, all these individuals that I was so loyal to wasn't loyal to me like that. And I ended up, my best friend growing up was a gentleman named Sam Perry, and he was from outside of Columbus, and his parents were living at his grandmother's house down about 5 streets from my house, and he had things that I definitely didn't, clothes, and he had a different swag, and you know, he was a tall white guy that people loved. He could play baseball, and when we went to the church together, and we was like 11 years old when we met, and we just clicked. And so I ended up starting to stay the night at his house, and my mom loved him, and I would wear his clothes. He taught me a lot about swag, what I mean, in the 90s and stuff. And it ended up he ended up coming to the school as well for a time, and then he ended up leaving. But I ended up signing up for the Marines on the buddy system with Sam. And I graduate from Heritage. I believe he graduated from Marion Franklin. And I'm thinking that, I'm not sure what I want to do with my life. I had signed up for Texas Bible College as well because at 15 I felt like I was called to preach, and so I'm finding my way, but I'm not positive what I want to do. I just know that my mom raised me with respect. She didn't play, spare the rod, spoil the child. She didn't play, and she had she had designer belts, you know what I mean, the kind that whistle when they whoop you.
Hmm.
So I was definitely very afraid of my mother growing up, and I feel like that's something that's lacked today. A lot of youth don't fear their parents, so they don't respect them, and I did. I feared my mom, and today I have a respectful fear for her.
Right.
And we don't talk a lot because of circumstances that have occurred, but I still love and respect my mother through all her journey and through all her situations. I still love that woman. But the day before I went to take my ASVAC test to go to the Marines, I got assaulted, and a guy I had went to church with, I had known, he was a blood, and he was from Smith Road, and he hit me, and I don't remember the situation. People told me I hit my head on the table, and then on the concrete I was knocked unconscious. And we were at my mom had let me have our Section 8 apartment for the last 30 days of the lease. She had got her voucher and had moved to a house in Blacklick, Ohio. And so I was just having this going away party. I just knew my life was about to be different, going to the Marines. And so when I came to, it was 2 days later.
Hmm.
And I was in Grant Medical Hospital. And my family was around the bed looking at me and stuff. And I'm just looking around like, what's going on? And I had a traumatic brain injury. So the swelling had went inside. And they had to put me in a self-induced coma for 2 days. So that was that second head injury.
Yep.
That I did not, once again, understand it until I got older and started learning about the brain. But it changed me again. And I went from a little adventurous, kind of assertive, but more passive. I let a lot of people get over on me or treat me a certain way when I was younger because I wanted to be liked. And I didn't think friends fought. And my mom always used to say, you only going to have a handful of friends that you truly have are true friends. But I thought everybody was my friend.
Right.
So when I came to, I started to be more aggressive. I started to stand up for myself differently. I started to be more adventurous. I was willing to do things that other people wouldn't do. And I didn't equate the head injury to me feeling this way. But my mom called my recruiter, and he said I had to wait a year for me to go to the Marines because of this head injury. That was in 2000.
Damn.
And so during that year of me waiting, I was caught for committing my first burglary.
Hmm.
And I had never been in trouble before. Juvenile, I had never got in trouble besides me going to Scare Straight, which it
Yeah.
kind of did. But my mom would always pay my way out. She, you know what I mean? She was always my guardian angel.
Mm-hmm.
And I exploited that so much, you know. And I remember telling my mom I hated her when I was a kid. And she said she hate me. She said, I hate you. And even in that moment when I was stomping up the stairs, I knew she understood that word hate more than I did. I was a kid
Mm-hmm.
saying something because I didn't get my way. But years later, I looked at that statement like, dang, man, I affected my mother that way, that she would even feel like she could say
Mhm.
that. Since I had never been in trouble, when I went to hear my bond hearing the next day, they gave me an OR bond and let me out. 2 weeks later, they had a warrant out for my arrest for another burglary that they said my fingerprints was at.
Mm.
And in the midst of them catching up with me, I was in a stolen car.
How old were you at the time?
I was 19.
19.
And I took him on a high-speed chase. I had a guy named Justin Logston in the car with me. And they ended up, both of us ran into his house, and I was the only black guy in the house. And they said I'm breathing. My heart is They said my chest is pounding. And so they took me and they asked where my friend at. I said, "Oh, I'm now I know you don't know who it was that both of us ran in. You seen
Right.
this last person, which was Justin." But I said, "It's Big Joe. He from 4th Street." I made up a name. Even in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
it was really my first real time getting even questioned about something. But I already had a way of what I was
Immediately
how I was going to do. You know what I mean? I was raised, and like most of us in the 80s, and we were raised by movies. New Jack City, New Jersey
Yeah.
Drive, Scarface, Goodfellas.
Yep.
You've seen this type of energy of what a gangster looked like, what a street person looked like, what an individual that you wanted to be like. But a lot of them stories ended up with someone telling on each other anyway. But
Or
I'm
someone
like,
dying.
or dying, yes. And so I had this image of what I was going to be if the situation arose, and that's what I did. I didn't put Justin's name in the situation. So they take me to jail, and that's when they tell me I got a felony 2 burglary warrant out for my arrest. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just got out. They must be talking about that first burglary. They're like, no, this is a whole nother one. And so they take me down to Jackson Pike for my real first ride. And it began a cycle, a perpetual cycle of me getting out. I got out on probation, and then I get caught back up for another stolen car. They put me back on probation, and I ended up going in and out of that workhouse. By the time I went to prison my first time, I had 33 months credit.
Wow.
And
Holy shit.
from really 18 to 25, I ended up getting arrested 15 different times as an adult.
Wow.
And I went to prison my first time. I did a year in the workhouse from 03 to 04, and then I pled out, and they sent me up the way because I went to jail in 03 for F1 aggravated burglary, F2 burglary, F2 robbery, F3 robbery on a friend of mine that I grew up with, played little league football for the Buckeyes, and He was really a friend, a really close friend of mine, and he got $86,000 when he was 18 years old, and we were a year apart. My birthday July 11th, his July 12th, and we're 2 years apart. And within 11 months, he was broke.
Hmm.
OxyContins
Mm.
had entered his life, and now he got this money for a car wreck that had happened when he was 11. And he introduced me to oxys. I ended up doing oxys for 4 months, and a gentleman had. Now I didn't say nothing really about my drug use, but that I didn't start getting high until the day I graduated from this Christian school. I had tried weed one time before that when I was 15 with my cousin, and then I didn't like it. I seen it in my family. I seen it in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of mentors that was keeping me away from that. A woman named Yolanda Frierson at the Southside Settlement, she used to send me to this thing called Teen Institute. And it was a 3-day weekend, and they did basically IOP, intensive outpatient, for that weekend. And they taught teenagers and kids how to abstain from getting high. And so I liked that type of energy. And even when I had started selling drugs, I didn't get high because I looked at the people that what they said, don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah.
I looked up to those type of people, and I thought that like the movies that I would see, like back in the 70s, those type of movies, 60s, 70s, they would have the pimp pull up in the caddy and pass out dollars and stuff to the kids and stuff. And I looked up to those type of people, you know. And so I didn't get high. And when I did, I started smoking weed the day I graduated from high school with some people from my school. And they introduced me, and I took it to a whole nother level. And once again, not knowing my addicted personality.
Yeah.
And so when I got involved with drug use, it took me to another level. Like I was more open to people. I could communicate different. I had fun, and coke was introduced to me. It had been asked for me to try it. I'm like, nah, I'm not. I'm not with that type stuff. And a gentleman named Carl Conley, him and Sean Chavis, they was big guys in my neighborhood and well known. People looked up to them, and they offered it to me, and I just wanted to be a part of.
Yep.
And so I started that journey, and for 8 months I was on coke. 4 months I was on oxys, all at around the same time, but I had never done a whole oxy by myself. I'd always do it with somebody, but I seen like as soon as I would do it, I would get to throwing up.
Yep.
And it was taking me to a level where I really didn't like being too low. I liked the coke. I liked the ecstasy. Perks and Vikes, 5s and 10s weren't nothing like they are with 30s and stuff. You know what I mean? So it you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like I was up more. I don't remember really, but my friend, who I thought was my friend, Willie, I was with him for 5 times. He tried to quit oxys, throwing up, he can't use the bathroom. Like I was there while he went through this, and I was a true friend to him. And in June of that next year, he asked to borrow $15, and I'm like, listen, he wanted to buy a sack of weed from me. He wanted a pack of Marlboros and a blunt shell. And I'm like, listen, I'm just going to give you the $15. You can go buy it from somebody else. And so he's like, no, I just want to get it. Da, da, da. So I gave him the $15. He gave me 10 back. I gave him a sack of weed. He said, going to give me the money that next week when his grandmother got paid, or at the end of the week. And long story short, that day came. He told me he wasn't paying me. And so his girlfriend was Bobby Lee, and my girlfriend was Miranda Hood, and they were sisters. and we were at their mom, Laura Lee's house, and I woke up the next day. They were sleeping on the front living room floor, and I left out, went to his house, his grandmother's house, and I even had a key to the house. I had been allowed in this house since I was 11 years old. Now I'm like 21, 22 years old, and I go in, I take a t-shirt, a wife beater, a pair of socks, a pair of shoes, a DVD movie, The Phone Booth, and 2 pellet guns. And those was my friend Josh's guns that the grandmother had taken and said they looked too real. So when I come out the house, Willie and Josh are pulling up, and I slide off and go up an alley and throw a bag up on Sam Perry's back porch, and I come back over on my scooter, and Willie's coming out the house. He gets up in my face, says why I go in his house. He pushes me, he pulls his cell phone and his wallet out and tries to hand it to Josh. Josh says, I'm not in it. We're all friends. We all grew up together. And now this is the drug addict that's broke, that's lost all this money, bought 4 cars and all kind of clothes, and everything is destroyed or lost because his addiction was crazy. And he set the stuff down on the ground, and he came running at me and swinging, and I hit him a couple times, and he grabbed my shirt, and blood went all over my shirt, and I pushed him away. And he told me to get out of there. He crying. He grabs my scooter, throws it at me. I jump on it. As soon as I roll around the corner, a cop is behind me, sees blood all on me, pulls me over, puts me in the car, drives me back over. They end up arresting me for that aggravated burglary, F2 burglary, F2 robbery, F3 robbery. Now, once again, they went and found that bag, and when the police pulled it out and they seen that, I said a T-shirt, a wife beater, a pair of socks. When they seen that, they're looking at him like, what is this? And so I said he put his cell phone and wallet down. When I beat him up, I didn't go grab his stuff. I didn't steal I just wanted, all my intent was to go back to the house, put the clothes on in the bedroom, come out and say, you don't want to get my money? Well, you can't have your clothes till you get my money. But it escalated so big. Mm-hmm. And it put me in that workhouse to fight for my life. I was facing 47 years.
Holy shit.
For my best friend. I mean, one of my true friends, I always watch his back. I was always, I was there for him. And it goes back to what I had spoke on before. Like, I was so loyal to people. What I didn't understand, I was loyal to lames. What ended up happening is me going to jail multiple times, and out of the 3 different cases, 7 people told on me that grew up with me, put my name all in type of stuff that they was even a part of.
Wow. But
I never did it because I seen the world through a different lens. Even way back then, I had certain disciplines. Even though they was misguided, I still had a way of standing up. So, and for me, that head injury really took me down a different path. And by the time I was 22, I had done 5 drive-by shootings. Like, I was all in, and I went from Christian school to all this craziness. And so I go to, they violate me for the probation. I end up winning my case. Like I said, F1 aggravated burglary, F2 burglary, F3 robbery, F2 robbery, F3 robbery. I fought that for a year, and Willie and Josh weren't showing up to court. And his grandmother was showing up, but the prosecutor told him, if you're not going to show up, there's nothing you can do. You were at work. My mom is getting into it with her. Like, y'all trying to put my son away. Like, he didn't, Right. He didn't break into your house. There wasn't no broken windows and nothing. It wasn't like you're trying to make it out to be. But my mom was always there. Every court date I ever had, besides that very first one that she didn't know I had got arrested for, but every time my mom was there. And she told me one time, like, my father had come, but then she seen him turn around and leave the courthouse. And I know it was something different for this man that really hadn't been into the type of trouble that his son was getting into.
Right.
And he had even become supervisor over at Maryhaven.
Hmm.
And we had gotten into it. I punched the wall at Maryhaven and stuff after him trying to tell me something about myself. And I'm like, man, you don't even know how to be my dad. Like, you trying to tell me something. But all he was doing was trying to keep me out the bull.
Right.
So they ended up violating my probation that I was on paper for F2 burglary, 2F4 receiving stolen properties for stolen cars, geek rentals, we used to call them. And I go to Noble for a year. And that's when I started to learn a little bit about the IOPs. And I went through carpentry, but I ended up getting kicked out because I ended up going to the hole for fighting and you know what I mean, drugs. But it was showing me something about that world. And at Noble, it was in '04, it was still gladiator school.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid that I call my family, Michael Staten, he was there. He had got 7 years for a robbery. And so I got to be with him and learn from him. And he knew the prison mentality. He knew
Right.
that life. And so he made sure that I was good. And then even when I was trying to get into fights, he wouldn't let it happen and stuff. He was more of a big brother to me than any type of brother I had up to that point in my life. And he had lived 2 doors away from me growing up, so I used to be over at his house. His older brother Wu and everybody, they was there for me, and I didn't have no siblings like that. My sister was 11 years younger than me,
Right.
and in the beginning, like I was envious of my sister, you know, and I took it out to the streets because of me feeling like she took my best friend. So just bringing it up to a head, I end up getting out in '05, July '05, and I have a plan. I done wrote down things. I'm like, man, I'm going to college. I had applied for my FAFSA while I was at Noble,
Okay.
and I got approved. I put down O State, but I ended up choosing Columbus State to go to. So the very second day, let me say that. For 2 years, I didn't drink. They had hoots around. I was cool. The day I get out, I'm in the parking lot at Noble, and another guy is there, and he like, hey, they call me KD. KD, bro, you want to hit this Henny? My mom and my sister there to pick me up, and I wanted some McDonald's breakfast. And she bought that for me and some clothes, and so we both changing out our jogging outfit. And I hit his Hennessy 4 times. Boom, boom, cracked the gallon bottle. And we both left our clothes right there in the parking lot, knowing that could be an issue and everything, but it was me saying F you.
Mm-hmm.
My mom said to me, she said, Dion, I'm not coming back to prison with you. I said, yeah, me neither. I ain't never going back to this. Man, that was horrible. So we pulled off. I was drunk before I even left the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't let me go nowhere for that first day. That second day, I was at Columbus State filling out. I went and got my ID. I had went and opened up a bank account. I have an uncle, rest in peace, Robert Evans, Elder Robert Evans. He had a mega church in Longview, Texas. And that's where Texas Baptist College was. And so I was going to be by my uncle. Somebody, I kind of felt I was following in his footsteps. I always looked up to him. He was the oldest of the Evans. And he had started a business selling noni juice. And so my mom had got it going in Columbus. And then when I was coming out of Noble, she transferred it into my name. So I came home with a business in my name. And I got everything started. I signed up for Columbus State, and I refused to smoke weed. People kept asking me. I knew already that that was something I had a problem with.
Right.
I'm not thinking alcohol is the problem. I'm just thinking the weed. That's my issue.
Yeah.
And so I end up I forgot about this. I had went to CBCF. That was a part of them putting me on probation. They sent me to CBCF, and then I messed all. I graduated from there, and going in and starting that program, they had something called the Pink Room. They said when you come in this room, that was your very first day. They said if you come back in this room, you'll be
It's
going back.
bad for you.
Yes, bro. I ended up getting put in there 3 different times, bro. But I was able to manipulate to make the situation work for me, and I got out of there, and I ended up graduating from that program. Because once again, like I said, I was able to use yes sir and yes ma'am to manipulate situations. And so when I came home from the joint and I got started, everything was going good. Besides me drinking, everything was going good until that 3rd month, and I ran into that best friend of mine, Sam Perry, and he just had more influence over me than I understood and that he understood. And he offered me some weed, and I was like, nah, I'm cool. Got in his car, had met his fiance, and they just seemed like an amazing group to be together. I was proud of both of them. And so we drove from the south side to the east side. And by the time we got to the east side, I'm like, bump it, let's go. And started smoking. That very same week, I stole a car from Columbus State. My key fit the ignition. I had a Plymouth Sundance, and my car was broke down. And so I put my key in one of the doors in the parking lot, and it opened it up. It didn't. I put it in the ignition. It went ding, ding, but it wouldn't turn over. I got out that one, took the CD player and a amp off these speakers that was in the back seat, and then I jumped on my bicycle and rode closer to the front door, seen another one, jumped in that, it turned over. I put my bike in the car, drove back over, picked them speakers out of that other car, put them in that car, and pulled across the street to the bookstore, the used bookstore. Parked the car right there, turned it off, turned it back on, it did it, got out, jumped on my bike, rode to the school, went to my class, told my teacher, I got a family emergency, I gotta go. I just wanted to get my other homework. She gave it to me. I left. Later on that night, I got caught in that car on the west side of Columbus. And that was immediately, bro. That same week, I started smoking. I immediately wanted to cut corners. And so I'm out a total of 13 months. I ended up getting arrested. I was out on 3 bonds. And then I got I got caught with crack pills in Washington Courthouse, and then bonded out. I had got a driving with no license. I was driving a work truck. I worked for a moving company up in Erie County. That was my 2nd bond. Then my 3rd bond was getting caught with the crack. And 2 weeks later, I get arrested in Pickaway County for 2 burglaries, but they knew I had committed 3. I had done a burglary the day before and got 7 guns out of that house. And I went back because we had our 3rd eviction notice on the door, me and my girlfriend. And I had brought her up from Circleville to Columbus. I'm 24, she's 19, an Italian chick, and I'm trying to prove to her father that I'm a man and I'm not the same guy I was. I went to prison. I can take care of her and but man, I was still a kid in adult clothes. And I turned 25 in July of 06. August, I started a 18-year bit. And when they like I said, August 24th, 2006, they arrested me they caught me at the 2nd house, the correctional officer's house I had hit first. And then I was coming back toward Columbus, and I seen another house, and I thought I could get that one too. Pulled my car up in the garage, shut the garage door, and half an hour later, I'm still in the house. Silent alarm been going off, and they come to the back door that I had kicked in it's a cop with a dog. And I come out to the garage. I see him. I'm like, oh. I shut the door. He like, come out with your hands up. I'm looking at him like through the window panes, like, hold on 1 second. And then I hit the garage door opener, jump in my car, shut the door, get to rolling my window up because I know this dog about to jump in the car. Instead, it was another cop, kicks in the door, puts the gun 2 feet away from my head. Turn the car off. Turn the car off. And back then, bruh, man, they had me dead to rights to kill me.
Right.
Like, and I'm in Circleville, Pickaway County, and with all the stuff that done happened over these years, man, I'm, by God's grace, I was saved that day, man. But he said turn the car off, and I did not listen. I pulled it down into drive and took off, busted out half the garage, and got about a mile down the street in my girlfriend's Thunderbird, and I hit a telephone pole.
Oh.
The cops weren't behind me. I was so scared and nervous and trying to get away, and hit a bump going 100 miles an hour, broke the back axles and hit a telephone pole, jumped out, took off running into the woods. They caught me about 4 miles later.
Damn.
And they ran the tags on the car. They asked me my name. I said, I need to see my lawyer. They said, what's your name? I said, I need to see my lawyer. They said, run the tags. They went to her parents' house because they was from Circleville and took that family out of their house at gunpoint. Father owned a construction company. Her mother worked for Children's Services, and her 2 brother and sister, man, they ain't do nothing wrong, but my actions created that whole narrative. And so they locked me up. They wouldn't let me get a phone call, but their detectives went to Franklin County, and they went to my apartment because her parents told them where she lived at, and they gave a search warrant for her to sign. And so they went in the house and they found 13 guns, and they found all kind of property from the house the day before, and I started that journey.
It's over with at that point.
Yeah, it was over with in my head. I mean, like, I had done, man, the very first burglary, I got 2 years.
Right.
So in my head, and I just told you, I said a year and beat 4 of the top felonies. They broke that down to a misdemeanor, 1 theft. In my head, I'm going to beat this.
Right.
Man, I was so mistaken. They took me to trial in 85 days, and they gave me 20 years, 2 months, and a 10-year license suspension after I got out.
What does that feel like?
At first, I didn't believe it. The cops had to tell me that that's how much time they gave me. And I remember going to my cell, and I was in a single-man cell, breaking down, crying, and praying. And I denounced the time at that time, but I still felt like I just got out.
Right.
I didn't know how I was going to do any of the time. That 2 years had kicked my butt. Now he's talking about 20 years.
Yeah, it's
It didn't make sense to me, you know. And when I went to trial, you know, the people whose homes I broke into, I got to see them. So the correctional officer whose home I broke into, I got to see him face to face, and I seen the anger in his eyes. And I'm angry at him, but I'm the one that went in his house.
right.
So they tell me I'm going to Lucasville. Now, they knew that before I even left that county jail. But I get to CRC, and they knew exactly who I was when I got there. And they put me in PC. And the very first day I was there, I met Maurice Clarett. And he happened to be in that block upstairs. So they were able to move more differently than us downstairs. But Maurice was a superstar, so they let him come out the cell and mingle with individuals that was in PC. And I just remember him, he was like, he was the first person that came up to me like, man, what you doing in PC? I'm like, man, I burglarized a correctional officer's house. And I'm trying to say it low because I don't want to. I done told the police that wasn't me.
Yeah.
But to him, I told him that, and he like, ooh, dang. And so I was there for 5 days, and when I left, he was leaving to go to Toledo. So we walked out the door together. He put his number in my Bible and stuff, and to me, it was just, I was a superstar. Like, I couldn't believe that, you know. And
it's crazy.
I had to tell him, I said, man, you know, I watched you get arrested. The day that you was on Bryce Road in the paddy wagon, I had went to the gas station to get some blunt shells, and the attendant told me he was right down the street. So I drove down there, pulled up. I see Maurice Clarett in the van, handcuffed with a vest on. And then I'm like, man, I ain't got no license. What the heck I'm doing out here? Boy, I got the heck up out of there. But that was crazy to me that I had been in this moment and got to see him. And now I'm seeing him face to face. And not knowing that our journey is going to continue to meet again. And so I go to prison, man, for the 2 burglaries. They didn't find me guilty for the 3rd one because there wasn't evidence except of me having the property. But what he, in hindsight, did was sentence me as if he was sentencing me for all the burglaries because they knew that I had done it. He gave me maximum consecutive sentences for 2 felony 2s, thefts for the property, safe cracking, failure to comply with the signal of an officer, and a receiving stolen property for a credit card that was in my back pocket.
Damn.
So he consecutive sentences. It was still only 2 felony 2s. He gave me 8 years apiece. That's 16 years, and then he broke down the other ones. And I knew in my heart, I'm like, you legally you're not supposed to give no one maximum consecutive sentences. So the very first job I got when they sent me to Lucasville was in the law library. And I remember the very first week I had came out into population, we were going to rec, and this big tall black dude, he pulled out a pen and tried to stab the porter that was right past the metal detector. And the police took off on him, got him up against the wall, get to punching him, and they letting the inmate hit him too at the same time. So I'm seeing this like, what the heck? We're back here. There's some people that made it into the gym, so they looking through the glass, and we on K side, and they put me in the gang unit in K6. So I'm seeing the rawest of the raw at this time, and I'm seeing this guy go through this situation, and they get him down, they cuff him up, they get him on his knees, and the CO takes his face and smacks it into his knee multiple times. Blood goes everywhere.
What the fuck?
All I'm thinking is, I'm here for burglarizing a correctional officer's house. So this has a potential to be me or worse.
Yep.
And so they ended up making us go back to the block and stuff. And a couple days later, CO comes to my cell, and he says, "Are you here for robbery?" And I don't want to sound soft. Burglary soft. Yeah, I'm here for robbery. Yeah. He like, well, you here for robbing a correctional officer from Pickaway County? I'm like, how the heck he know? No, not me. He like, oh, man, I was just wondering because my friend said the guy that robbed him was on his way down here. I was just wondering if it was you. I'm like, no, that wasn't me. But if that was me, what would that mean? He said, oh, we had to mark your name down in the book, so if anything happened, we wouldn't get in trouble. I'm like, no, heck no, that ain't me. So I just started my journey there. And, you know, like I had said the first time, the experiences behind prison cultivated me, educated me, enlightened me, pushed me in ways that I never would have been pushed out on the streets. And I ended up going to 10 different prisons, and majority of that was by choice. Like, I signed up for programming and everything. The only time it wasn't, I got my security raised at Pickaway. I had got denied on my judicial, and I crashed out. I ended up going to the whole 3 different times in a year, and they was like, man, we don't want you to go, man, but it's time for you to go to another joint. So they raised my security. I got from a level 4 down to a level 1. They raised me back up to a level 2, sent me to London. right before COVID. And while I was down, man, I mean, there's many, many stories, many situations that I was involved in. And like, um, National Geographic came to Ross when I was there, and for 6 months they recorded us, and it was gangland.
Mm.
And I've been in situations with my torso taped up, knife taped on hand, locks on belts. I got into a fight in the chow hall with a guy picked up a metal pan and started swinging it at me, and I'm backing up and I'm pulling carts in front of me, and I get to the doorway and he turns around and starts to walk back, and he's thinking I'm gonna run out the door, but I'm a knucklehead. I run and grab one of the metal trays and run at him and swing it, and we both hit them. They clink, both. It hurt. We both set him down, locked up, and I punched this guy. And this was one of them typical killers. Like, he had a scar down his eye, and he was, people knew him in the chow hall. Like, man, he had been down decades, and a Muslim brother was standing beside us like, let him go, come on, y'all need to stop. And that man said, he gonna hit me again. This man bigger than me, but I'm at 230 at the time. I ain't no slouch, but he was more afraid of me than I was him. Just because I didn't turn around and run.
Right.
And that mentality that's taught into you, no matter if you win or lose, just be willing to fight.
Mm-hmm.
That propelled me to stand up for myself a lot. And I never ran away from my challenges. And that was something that I found myself doing on the streets. But when I got to prison, the second number, I was on a different time. And when Lucasville always talked about it was either predator or prey. And I refused to be prey.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a predator. And I said, man, I was the boogeyman's boogeyman. I didn't start trouble, but I was not for the trouble. And, there was so many situations that I was very afraid in the moment.
I'm
But
sure.
I turned my fear into fuel. And there was a situation that happened in 2008. I was at Lebanon. I got my security dropped. And I held a pack for a guy named Dada. And he went to his visit, and it was about $150 worth of weed. And when he came back, I had lost it. It fell down my pant leg into the hallway while I was going to dinner, to dinner, and or to lunch, excuse me. And I had to tell him when he came back, and he went to a cell first, and we were next door neighbors up on the second range, and there was 3 ranges on that Lebanon, man, and it was real. It was 2008, man. It was prison. It was real prison. And so this guy had been down a couple decades, too, big, stocky, black dude, well known in the joint. I thought he was in there for murder and everything, and all I wanted to do was fit in. I held the pack just because I wanted to be light. I didn't think nothing was going to happen. I was going to lose the pack, but he come out. I had went up to my cell. He like, come on up here. Now I'm already feeling like, I said, look, I'm gonna pay it, but I just need a little bit of time. But I lost it. Now I know in my head, all right, we about to fight. That's as far as I'm thinking. I'm just not going to run from the fight. I said I'm gonna fight, whether I win or lose. But I really lost your stuff. I'm really still willing to pay for it. So he called me up to the cell. I go into his cell, and 2 other people come in behind me, and all 3 of them pull out knives and tell me to strip. And I stripped down. All I'm thinking in my head, fear is there, but in Lebanon, there wasn't no shower curtains. We all showered together anyway. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes there's 4 or 5 people inside of a 3-head shower. all I want to prove is that I didn't have your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But made me strip naked and went through my clothes and stuff, seen that I didn't have it. Then he sent one of the dudes next door to my cell to see if I had the stuff hidden. And so he come back over like, nah, it ain't over. There ain't nothing over there. And I remember looking at the TV. He had a green Zenith TV, had a Super 3 radio. I looked at the pillow. I looked at everything that I could, man, that I was going to take to fight. But I just wanted to prove that I wasn't lying. I didn't take your stuff. But I didn't realize how victimized I was being in that moment. I didn't know how traumatizing that situation was about to keep me for years to come. He said, get on out of here. I ripped my shorts out of his hand. And instead of putting them on then, I just wanted to get out of that room.
Yeah.
And he had said this. He had said we should rape and kill him. And a dude named Billy the Kid, white dude, the only white dude in that room, said, nah, bro, we ain't doing nothing like that. I left out that cell, and I remember Dada saying, hey, look. And people look up and see me walk in the range. And even though I was just a few steps away to my cell, that was the longest steps that I'd ever taken in my life. And I get into the cell, and my bunky's in there like, what the heck is going on? He's like, what are you? And I put my stuff on, and I'm like, dang, I don't know what I'm about to do. But what I knew I wasn't about to do was go check in. I wasn't about to go tell on nobody. And so they locked us down. Then they called us to trial, and they said we went to trial, and all of a sudden multiple bloods come up to my table like, man, what just happened, bro? Man, I heard you was naked and da-da-da-da-da. I heard you held a pack for somebody. Well, you in violation. So come on down to the gym at rec time. I'm like, all right. So I go back to the cell. I get ready, and I go down to the gym. Now, once again, people thinking I'm just going to check in. I ain't going to go down to the gym. I'm just going to go right to the CO. I need to go to the hole. That's not who I am. And so I go down to the gym, and they got me in the middle of the gym. They asked me what happened. I tell them what happened. They like, well, you got to go up on the stage for 2 minutes and fight two people, but you get to choose one. And there was this blood that was in the block with me named Hollywood that had walked by, seen me face to eye, and didn't come to help in no way, shape, or form. So I said, I want him. Make sure he's one of them. And so I went up around to go up the stairs, came up the back way of the stage. They had like a ping pong table in the middle, and up the edge is where they passed out the equipment, but you couldn't see around it. The COs had to get up and come around up on the stage to see. And so I took my shirt off, and I went up to the two dudes, and I got to swinging. And I don't remember all the swings, but I know everything that was inside of me, the embarrassment, the anger, the pain that I was going through, I took out on them two men. And when they said, all right, it's good, both of them was leaking. I ain't had no blood coming out, some little red marks. So I'm light-skinned, it happens. But I went around and grabbed my T-shirt, and Katz was like this, okay? And I go down the stairs, and the bloods take me outside to smoke a joint with me, and all I'm thinking is, man, now we about to go get these dudes? Like, but all they wanted to do was see something. They didn't care about whether I lived or died.
No.
And most of them, I didn't even know. But I was so into that world, knowing that there's consequences that come with your actions. I'm like, man, I got to come out of this cell every day and think about this man that's right here. But what I didn't know at that time was that he was also thinking about me. He didn't know how I was going to react because I didn't go check in, and I didn't go tell. And when we came back to the block, there came over the walkie-talkie that a white shirt had found a pack in the hallway. So now they even found out that I wasn't lying, that this stuff had really happened. And so he ended up coming to me, and we worked out that, you know, I could pay it off over a period of time and stuff. And I was cool with that because it was my debt. And so I ended up starting to pay it off and stuff. And he still has some of my property and stuff. But I'm feeling the energy of people around. They see this. They like, bro, they know what happened. And they don't see me crashing out. But all I want to do is get home. I said the very first job I got in the joint was in the law library. I started fighting my case immediately.
Yeah.
And at Lebanon, I was still fighting my case. Met a guy named Buckethead and worked in the law library, and Mike something, and they started giving me advice. But since I couldn't pay, my family, like my mom said, she wasn't coming back to the joint with me, and she didn't. Financially, she was there where she had a phone on for me to call. At first, she was paying for the phone. You know what I mean? It was still a landline and stuff. And she couldn't do it. Or she chose not to. And so I accepted that. I call every other week because Lebanon was like $5 a phone call to call Columbus. And so every other Sunday I call home. But I was doing this on my own. I had put myself in there by my decisions, and now I had to figure this out. And so I just started being a sponge, learning everything that I could, but paying attention to everything around me. And I started playing cards a lot, and I was making money off of that. Me and this brother named Nima. And his brother Omar, like we at Lebanon, like we always used to play cards. I mean, especially me and Nima, I could set the deck and stuff on the spades and stuff. And I wasn't no punk, so people just wasn't trying me. I don't know, like I was light skinned. I said I was light skinned with a big butt, and I refused to get fucked. So the mentality that I went in with is how I fought throughout my whole bit. And so when I left there, I put a hardship in and got to Ross. And that's why I said it was gangland. But people knew what had happened at Lebanon. So that energy was still there. People looking at me weird. They talking about it and stuff. And I'm still just not going, though. I'm not letting you bully me. I'm not letting you take nothing from me. And I'm still trying to find myself throughout this chaos. I started to get good with the law, and I won my first little appeal. And it was only that they could fix it clerically. So I had got denied with the attorney, but I ended up winning something with myself. And I ended up getting my security lowered. We had a warden named Jeffries there who was for the inmate for real, man, and he wanted us to start programming. And so I was one of the first people to start a finance class, but I didn't know nothing about finances. I picked up a guy that was in the honor block with me that taught me, used to sit down with me and teach me about stocks and stuff. And so I asked him to be the teacher. And so we ended up starting the class together, and I had a bunkie named Beauregard, Nathaniel Beauregard, and he was the greatest artist I've ever met. And he showed me how to bring drawing to life. But the biggest thing that he taught me was that staff wasn't against us. That dichotomy of thinking that it's us against them was something that was fashioned into me way when I was on the streets. Mm-hmm. But to get into that environment, I seen that there was people there that were just trying to work a 9-to-5, that were trying to provide for their families, that were doing corrections because they had a legging in it. They were able to pay their bills. Mm-hmm. Not that they were looking at me as my last bad decision. No. And they were willing to show favor to those that are willing to grow the hell up. And so I took that energy with me as my security got lowered. I got put on the medium side. I had already been approached by 2 COs, and they let me know that they knew the CO, that I had burglarized his house and that he wanted to give me a message. Next time I rob his house, make sure he's home. Things could have turned out differently. So when Sykes and Andre approached me, they approached me in the honor dorm, and I remember when they came to me and when he said it, Andre said it to me. I was just looking at him like, you can't say this to me. I didn't say that to him, but I'm thinking this in my head like, y'all not allowed to say none of this to me, telling me that
Yeah.
another correction officer wanted to give me an ultimatum type scenario. And I said, well, since you passing messages, can you tell him I apologize? And I remember while I was there at Ross, I ended up getting into Thinking for Change and Victims Awareness, and they let you write a letter to your victims, which I don't like to call them that, more your survivors. And that's what I did. I wrote first one to him personally and his family, and then the second one I wrote to the community, apologizing. And I was starting to gain some traction of education, programming, but there wasn't a lot of programs for long-term offenders. So they had barber school there, and I had went and hollered at the teachers. And when I got my security lowered, that's what decided where the barber school was at. And I got into AOT, office technology, something like that, administrative office technology, AOT, and completed that. But I found out that you could only have one vocation per sentence, felony sentence. So I'm like, man, I really don't want that. I want to get involved in barber school. So I talked to the teachers, and they're like, all right, listen, we're getting ready to move this to Marion Correctional Institution. We'll send you down there as a part of the team, but you got to get approved for your hardship. So I wiggled that, figured that out, and I ended up going to the hole at Ross. Excuse me. I went to the hole at Lebanon, and then I went to the hole at Ross, and I still was level 2, so I got my hardship, went to Marion. I had 8 certificates when I got there. And while I was at Marion, I was there for 5 years. I had went from a level 4 down to a level 2 in 4.5 years, which is kind of unheard of. But I was learning the system and knowing how I could use my tongue. I was an educated man, but I made stupid decisions. And I started learning about my brain and how this head injury was affecting my it would get blurry. I would get headaches. I had migraines. I was taking medication for this stuff, and I starting to apply myself at Marion. I seen individuals in that prison that thought outside the box, and the staff there were unlike any other staff I'd ever seen. I left from down south prisons to get away from the potential of running into more COs that knew the correction officer whose home I burglarized. So I was really running.
Right.
And but I was going initially to go to barber school, but when I get down there, the staff there said I had too much time left. So I just started investing in the other programs there. And the staff there let me get a part of programs that normally was for long-term offenders, but there was so much going on, and if you knew the right people, you could get in. So that's what I started doing, was starting to network with the individuals like Lesan McCullough, Kevin Collier, Matt Brown, Scotty Cole, different people that was Rooster, people that was in the know. And there was a woman named Miss Jody Davis that she had a program down there called Lifeline. And she was bringing computers in, professors from other colleges in to teach us and stuff. And she brought an acting professor from Audubon College, Miss Jessie Glover. And so I started going to college for acting. And we ended up doing Hamlet. And 15 of us played Hamlet, but you also had a secondary character, which was your main character, and Hamlet was your secondary, so that everybody could play Hamlet. So I was Laertes, and we studied Shakespeare. I learned so much inside of those rooms, especially at Marion, and I would have never had that opportunity out on the streets. So I ended up being a part of TED Talks, and I was a part of the Stomp team that was on a TED Talk. I did sign language. I was a part of a TED Talk. I sang in a group where we sang 5 songs from the musical Rent that was on a TEDx talk. And Miss Jody, she just was a firecracker, an older white lady that showed us she didn't look at us as a crime.
Right.
And because of that, really, a lot of people took advantage of her. And someone that she really had invested in, Najmuddin Salim, ended up getting out, getting a job back in the prison system because the warden and multiple staff spoke on his behalf.
Yeah.
And they even went to Obama to get him approved because he had a sex offense. And PREA had come in. And so you weren't allowed to work in the prison system if you had a sex offense. But they fought for this man. And then he ended up getting caught with 9 ounces of cocaine and 25,000, and ended up going on the run. And Miss Jody bonded him out. But while he was in the county jail, I wrote a letter to him. And I told him, I said, man, please don't kill yourself. I said, man, you gave a lot of knowledge to us in here. And you're still giving us knowledge now. And all I wanted to do was to just show gratitude for what he had done. He had put me in different programmings and stuff, mentorships. But also to let him know, like, man, you did mess up. But please don't take your life. He was a Muslim brother. And the chaplain ended up coming to me and said, Dion, I need to talk to you. He called me to his office. And usually when you call the chaplain's office, somebody done died. So I was spooked that I was walking down there. I get down there. And he like, Dion, I shut my door. He's like, I need to tell you something. Najmuddin said he got your letter. And he just wanted to thank you for doing what you did, for writing what you wrote. I'm like, man, yes, sir. That's what's up. And he ended up getting on my JPay. And all of a sudden, I go to child, and I hear the COs calling me by my whole government. Like, hey, what's going on? They like, I don't know, man, but they was talking about you in roll call. They said something about Najmuddin. I'm like, man, hold on, man. He ain't give me the pack. Like, I don't know what you know what I'm saying? So I go back to my block, and I get on my JPay, and I see his name on there. And so he never sent me a letter, but him just getting on my stuff put me under the radar. And so while I'm at Marion, I ended up excelling in a lot of different areas. I got into the maintenance department and worked there for over 3 years and got into apprenticeship for heating and cooling. And favor was showed upon me on so many levels. And then I get in trouble for having 56 grams of tobacco. And the warden, Jason Bunny, he wanted to ride me out. The deputy warden came and took me out my cell and told me, hey, man, Jason want to ride you out. I'm like, for some tobacco? He like, nah. It's that you gained a trust. You was up in their offices fixing their air conditioners and heaters, and the whole time you still running game down these hallways. So I was always playing both sides of the fence. Right. And they said they put my ID next to the pouches of tobacco. They like, we got the golden child now. And it was like there were so many staff like, well, I knew it. But I was sitting there just trying to figure out life, not having people there for me and stuff. So I was just trying to figure out how do I get it, provide for myself, and still live in this environment. And I was good at that too. I was good at hustling. I cut hair. I did legal work. I drew. I started tatting. I had a store. I used to cook on the grill. Like I would turn an iron into a grill. Man, I'm somebody that I done had to pay for 3 irons from getting in trouble, getting caught with them, breaking them down and stuff, and they would charge me. I had never seen people get charged for irons. But I was just figuring life out and not ever thinking that I was going to make it out, because the people that I kicked it with the most was lifers. And to see that how they had to scrutinize their decisions different than a flat timer was something I appreciated. And I was that guy that would be like, man, shoot, nah, I'll take his word, because he got to go to the board. You gonna go home, but this man gonna have to get a consequence on a consequence on a consequence once he goes in front of this board.
Right.
And so I had seen myself gaining disciplines and a character in a different type of light. And at around 33 years old, I always say this, that's when I felt like I became a man. I went from boyhood to manhood. It's because then I understood that my decisions affected other people. And so I started to move a lot differently. And when I was running my stores and I'm doing different type of hustles, I started to learn how to manage money. And so I started to implement, okay, instead of me trying to go buy something, I'll put that back into my store. And I'll eat less. I'll eat some soups instead of trying to eat a big break. And so I was starting to see that, boom, I'm starting to send money home and to my mom at first. I'm buying tobacco, and I'm turning food bags into money and cutting hair, and money started coming missing. And so I ended up asking my ex-girlfriend if who was a really good friend of mine. She bought my first TV, and you know, she would come in and out. She had her own life, and her two children. You know, her son, I was there when she had him in the hospital for 3 days with her, and that was my godson, man. And I tried my best to be there as a friend to her son, like I would have wanted my father to be there. And so cards, I didn't miss holidays for none of my godchildren. I have 3 of them. Holidays, I always sent pictures, money, drawings, some type of gifts to them to let them know that they was appreciated. And my ex-girlfriend started to come visit me and stuff, and she would bring her son down to see me. And you know, that was my guy, man, Christopher Vale Jr. And then eventually her daughter Jasmine, she ended up bringing her to finally visit me after she was older at Grafton, right close to when I was about to come home. But I had individuals around me that I used to see. There was a man named Blanton. He used to send his state pay. He would buy candy and stuff for his kids, and he would send his state pay to his kids. And he would hustle to provide for himself. And I looked at that. That was a man that was disciplined, that was willing to do for his children in spite of him putting himself in that environment. He still wanted to be a father. And so it was little things like that that I was seeing how to be a man from people that was incarcerated, when they are also more so looked at the scum of the earth, and they're looked at as kids. And for real, there was a lot of kids in adult clothes in that environment, like I was when I walked in. But I started to really learn how to be a man, and I took a lot of communication classes. I took Toastmasters, and I was in every time I was a part of a TEDx event, you had to go through communication classes, because they were teaching us how to communicate with the outside people. And for real, I was not used to that. I was, you know, you're an inmate, this is staff, or this is a volunteer. You can't touch, you can't do nothing. But Miss Jody, she didn't play that. She wanted us to shake hands, to hug. She wanted us to be human inside of those environments. And that's where I gained a sense of humanity, taking her type of classes. And she wasn't for certificates. She said, these are strength building programs. They're not here for you to have an array of different certificates so you can have to your judge. No, I'm teaching you how to be an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had Healing Broken Circles. And I ended up getting 171 certificates while I was there.
Wow.
I ended up getting 6 certifications and 3 licenses. And the man that prosecuted me on my case ended up becoming my attorney. Michael Hess.
Hmm.
And 9 years in to my sentence, they let me call him. And I told him, I said, thank you for saving my life by sending me to prison. And I wanted to ask him permission to have his wife represent me because she was also an attorney. And he said, well, I can represent you. I'm like, but you prosecuted me. You got me all this time. He's like, Dion, this is Circleville. We could do what we want. I said, all right, how much you going to charge me? He said, $1,500. And so I hustled up the money, man. And a gentleman named John Simonelli that I had met over the phone ended up paying a portion of it. And I got the money to the attorney, and he came to Marion to see me. The man that prosecuted me became my attorney on record. And he ended up trying 2 times to get me out, and they denied me both times. But it was symbolic for me more than it was them
Full
letting
circle.
me go. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The man that he told me, he said, Dion, you're not the same kid that I met. And that meant more to me. I sent they have videograms you could send out. You could do a 5-minute video, and I paid to get a 10-minute video, but I was friends with the people that did the video, so I ended up sending out 11-minute and some second video, and it was me apologizing to the community. And this was in 2014, and I did a song in sign language called "I Need You." And I cried, and I just apologized to my family and everybody that I had affected by my decisions, man. And the men that poured into me inside of that place, they spoke up for me. They watched my back. They were true men that had made a bad decision. And what I always say is that when a person commits a crime, they lose their freedom. They don't lose their education.
Right.
So you have some highly intelligent lawyers, judges, police, husbands, business owners, all kind of array of different ideologies, cultures, creeds that's behind these walls. And if you're willing to listen, you can learn a lot. And that's what I did. And when I got denied the first time, I signed up to go to a TC, therapeutic community. While I was at Marion, I had been a part of recovery, really tough. The whole 5 years I was there, I didn't get high, didn't drink. I hustled and still didn't mess around. And I had become the head of the recovery organization. I ended up bringing my first fundraiser. I brought Grippos and rallies, stuff that nobody had, and people from Cleveland didn't even know what Grippos was, but they had heard about them, and we made over $15,000 off of Grippos alone. But I was proud to be able to do that because I was that kid that was a part of all the organizations, and I was a guy that would go clean the bathroom when we got outside guests about to come in. You need me to do whatever. You need that screw taken out when I was in maintenance, I'll take it out. I didn't have no pride to stop me from being utilized so I could gain knowledge. I knew that's what was going to be needed. And so as I learned from the small, I started to get greater. I started to, in the first play I was in, I had a smaller part, but I sang a solo, and my mom came to see it. And she cried in that chapel, seeing her son perform in a way she had never seen me perform. And it inspired me. By the time I was leaving there, I played Hamlet. I played Jesus Christ. I had went to so many levels. I had did 9 plays there, 8 plays there. I had went from the prodigal son at Ross to Jesus Christ at Marion. And then I went to Noble and for their therapeutic community and was having issues. I never liked it at the first time I was there, didn't like it the second time, and went to the hole twice. They said 2 different people said I was going to stab them. They put me under invest, and then they ended up, I told them, you get me off this compound. And so they rode me to Pickaway. And I went to Oasis. I was there for a week and went to the hole. And out of the 10 prisons I was at, I was in the hole in 9 of them.
Damn.
Out of the 10 prisons I was at, I fought in 8 of them. But along the way, I became one of the most accomplished inmates in Ohio. I wrote a book. I wrote a speech that got published in the Yellow Springs newspaper, a rendition of the I Have a Dream speech.
That's right. I remember you saying that.
And I grew up, man. And I took everything that I had. And I heard people always say, man, when you leave here, forget about this place. I don't agree with that. I feel like that's a part of your journey to help you grow to be the person that you are, no matter where you're at.
You don't want to forget that.
I never want to forget that.
No.
And so I was granted TC, and I left from Chillicothe, and my last bunkie was the head of the MS-13s. And he got out about a week after I did. And so I had met another Hispanic brother, Ranulfo Bocanegra, and he trained. He had 2 sons that was amateur fighters when he got locked up, and he used to have me in there training and stuff, working out, and I got into a situation right 2 weeks before I was to leave, man, against 4 Cincinnati cats, and I had a knife in my hand, and I was by myself, and one of the Cincinnati cats went to the behind me. And I turned to see, and it was 4 Mexicans behind me that had my back. And I looked, and this Cincinnati dude, big black dude, bald head dude named 50, he seen the knife in my hand. The cats that was surrounding me didn't. And he stopped them. And I went into the bathroom so we could be nowhere near a camera. And he came in there. He said, "Thank you, Dion." Well, he said, "Thank you, Lucky. They don't even know." But 2 weeks before I come home, I'm still on demon time because I did not ever think I was going to make it out. And I ended up, like I said, getting almost 250 certificates, 6 certifications, and 4 licenses, including my paralegal license. And I won my own appeal and got home 2 years early. I got 13 people out of prison from doing judicials out of 79 and working people's cases on motions and stuff, and was able to help a lot of people, but also find my own self.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left there, I went to the Alvis house off of Allen Creek. I found myself in a cul-de-sac. CBCF, the Alvis house in Maryhaven, where my dad used to work, where I was once at, and now I'm in the middle. And I didn't initially want to go to a halfway house, but I didn't want to stay in prison no longer. It was the best decision that could have ever happened for me. As soon as I got there, I walked in the door, and I seen that there was a guy, a young white dude, comes up to me, Dion, and he hugs me, and I'm thinking this is somebody I was locked up with. But nah, this was one of my childhood friends, one of the people that had told on me. And he looked totally different. Meth had taken him on a journey. And then I seen another brother, a dark-skinned brother that I was just at Grafton with over a year ago, and he was polished. He was together. He like, "What's up, Lucky?" He had seen me, heard me talk in different events at Grafton and stuff. He knew somebody different than this guy right here that was standing in front of me. But I also seen what path I could take. And I seen that I didn't want that path. I respected that path. Thomas Haywood and Jay Howard. And so I decided right then, I'm not here for that. You don't even know me. He know more about me than you. And so I started navigating toward what he was doing. I immediately started asking when they put me up in the room. I'm like, "Man, so what's this place like?" And he starts telling me about the staff and things that he appreciated and things he didn't like. And he's like, "Bro, but they let you get a job. Yeah. As long as you don't got to do programming and stuff. And look, man, you did all kind of programming. They probably ain't going to make you do no programming." But they sent me to talk to the counselors first. And I had great conversations with two individuals that I initially talked to who was going to eventually put me with my case manager. And so they heard everything that I had accomplished and everything I was out doing inside of the penal system. And so they was on board with letting me not take classes. And when I got to my case manager, Maggie, she had already been told from Jay Howard, from people that was locked up with me. She had already heard stories about me. So when I walk into her office and she just heard from her staff, she's like, dang, let me find out who is you? I'm like, man, I'm Dion Evans. And my journey began. The very next day, I asked if I could go to an AA meeting. It had always been my dream to do 90 and 90. And so she said, we're not really, we really don't try to do that, but we'll let you go to an AA meeting. And so I walked down to South Ohio, and I was so grateful. I didn't catch no bus or nothing. I walked from Allen Creek down to South Ohio, and someone had told me about the meeting. I had never been there before, but that was a Friday, and so I went there to that meeting, and I asked her if I could go to church Sunday. I didn't know what church I was going to go to. I just was looking to go. And there was a church at the end of Allen Creek, right before you get to Main Street, called Life Vineyard. And so my second and fourth day out, I was at an AA meeting and then a church. And when I walked in, the church service was over, but there was a crowd of people in the lobby, and I felt very uncomfortable. But I seen this tall, light-skinned guy with dreads, and I'm like, man, I felt more comfortable looking at him out of everybody, and I beelined over to him, a brother named Aaron Ellington, and he was one of the ministers there, and he was a young guy, 24, 25 years old, and I told him a little bit about my story. I just got out, and he gave me some bus passes, and he's like, well, this over now, but come next week. And I said, thank you for the bus passes, but I said, man, I'm probably walk though, man. Like I've been in prison so long, like doing circles around the track, going nowhere. And now I got a destination, man. I want to walk. He's like, that's cool, but you can still have them. And so I walked back to the Alvis house, and I seen people immediately. They were trying to rush to get a job. Well, I said, man, hold on. I don't have no job history. I have a lot of stuff from prison that's outdated. Everything, you know what I mean? The maintenance jobs I worked in, nothing is out here.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I want to build a foundation to stand upon before I ever go get a job or ask a job to give me a chance. So they told me I had to go through this class, a 5-day class with Todd Lewis, and he'll help you create a resume. They'll put it on a thumb drive, and then you can start going job seeking. So I did that, and they told me about a spot called Alvis 180 off of Brighton Road, 1991. And I immediately went down there, and there was a brother named Junior Brown at the front door at the desk, and he said, how can I help you? I said, my name's Dion Evans. I said, I just got out of prison after almost 18 years, and I was told y'all have certifications down here. He's like, yeah, we got the OSHA 10, the forklift, serve, save, flagger certification. I said, well, I heard you got an OSHA 30. He said, yeah, I think I got like one left. And I knew in that moment he was looking at me as if I was someone that wasn't going to finish it. Why waste your time on somebody when you could give it to somebody that is willing? And he just didn't know who walked through that door. And so he was like, I said, well, I want the OSHA 30. He said, all right. And he took me back to the computer room, and I got started. And in 13 days, I had earned the OSHA 30, the forklift flagger certification, and my serve save. And in prison, the serve save takes 6 months. But I was able to do it in 2 days. And so immediately I had started to build that foundation. Mm-hmm. So I heard about a class at the Urban League. Now I got an itinerary. I ain't really supposed to be moving, But I'm like, man, look, man, I'm out here to save my life. I'm not out here to play games. I'm not trying to do what I'm seeing people doing, getting right.
Yeah,
People coming to pick them up and they going to go have sex and da-da-da. I'm not
Right.
focused on none of that. I said that before. I'm not coming home to chase no tail. I'm coming home to chase success. Tail going to chase me. And so I maneuvered over to the Urban League, and they told me you needed a appointment to get in. But once again, favor isn't fair. And when I walked in there, a gentleman that I had seen that had came into the prisons, because I would go to the job fairs. And I said to myself when I got to the halfway house, I'm going to call the bluff of all the organizations that was coming into the prison saying that they was going to help us. And so that was the very first place I had went to. And Joey Green and Reggie Battles were the first two people that I had seen at First Friday. And they told me to come on up there when I get an opportunity. And so I went up, and Reggie Battles put me in contact with a brother named Brandon, and they ended up putting me into their 4-week class. Excuse me. And it was, they pay you $200 a week and extra $100 if you go through their financial literacy class. So I signed up, and I had seen these Lime scooters all around and on the ground, and you could pay to ride these things. And this is all new to me, man. They got electric scooters and eventually electric bikes out that you can pay for. Well, at first I was doing that, and that stuff was starting to get expensive, but I was enjoying being able to see the city, not necessarily having to get on a bus or walk. Well, that very first check from the Urban League, I went to Temu and bought a scooter, electric scooter, for $169. I took that $200 and bought a scooter, this $169 plus tax, instead of buying some tennis shoes. And for me, that's where my mind frame was, is that I'm here to get assets, not liabilities.
Right.
That was one of the best decisions that I could have made. And I started using that electric scooter. I got it into the halfway house. They seen it. It was delivered there, so they let it in. And I said exactly what it is. I'm going to ride this to programming. And they was letting me do that, man, for some months. And I went, after I graduated from the Urban League, I went to the arts program. They gave me a laptop for a 2-hour program. Then I went to the CEO program. And not only did they give me a job after taking their 2-day class, they gave me a job at a warehouse in Hilliard. And if you work one day, you get rapid rewards where they'll pay you $500 for staying working for 1 year. Throughout that year, you'll meet these plateaus or these peaks, and they'll pay you. And so I go to the job, and the very first day, they said one guy didn't show up that was going to be on the conveyor belt. They like, can you do that? I'm like, man, I can do anything you put me in front of. They said, all right, we're going to put you over here. So I go over there. And you got to take the boxes, it's different sizes, tape them, put them on a pallet, and then when it gets high enough, wrap it up with plastic wrap. Well, I'm moving faster than the people that are sending down the boxes on the conveyor. So I'm like, I pick up a broom, and I start cleaning the area. And it's a nice size area. And the forklift guy come over and said, what you doing? I said, man, I was raised that if there is no work, find work. He said, okay. And he drove off. And I get to sweeping and everything, cleaning my area. Then I go back to working. And the gentleman that drove us up there, Brian Washington, he ended up talking to me. He's like, man, I like how you move, man. I haven't seen nobody do what you're doing. I said, oh, man, this is just how I rather, give my all. I've been waiting almost 18 years to work. And so I leave. The very next day, I ride my scooter down there to Front Street and to the CEO program. At 6 a.m., they take us to the warehouse, and that forklift driver comes over and offers me a job. And I'm like, well, how much y'all make? Because right now we only making $10 an hour. He like, they pay 15. I'm like, I ain't trying to be funny, but that's what teenagers make. I said, I'm not. I'm. Thank you though. So I continue to work. The supervisor comes to me, a lady, and she offers me a job. And I said, well, how much you pay? And she said 15. And I said, man, I really appreciate you, but I really don't want to put myself in that position. So I completed that program. I got the eligible for the rapid rewards, but I'm still not focusing on getting a job. I really want to continue to build around myself. Like I said, build a foundation. And so I start going, to all the job fairs. Every meeting I can get to, AA meeting, I'm going to 3 of them a week that they'll let me go to. And I'm at the Mary Haven, and I'm at South Ohio, Dogs Without a Roof. And I'm pushing myself. And I know that these people are looking at me like, bro, this dude just running game. And I wasn't, man. I was walking down there. I was riding scooters. I was getting to these meetings, man, and I was hungry. And so it came along that Tyro. I had completed Tyro and got my forklift license when I was in Grafton. Well, they knew I was home now, and Ron contacted Phil over at CBCF, and they contacted my caseworker, and they're like, look, we would like Dion to come to Findlay and talk, and at a fundraiser, at a gala. And so Phil came over. They talked to. They ended up having to contact the ODRC, and I was out 32 days. ODRC approved me to go to Findlay, Ohio, and speak at the event. And so that was my first speaking engagement. At 61 days, I was at the State House. Arts program had asked me to speak. And like I said, throughout everything was about networking. I was letting people know I was in the building, that I was something different, that I had pushed myself behind prison walls to grow up. I read over 2,000 nonfiction books. So from Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Psychology of Money, The 50th Law, Visions of a Black Man. I have read so many different books to educate myself, to see things in myself that only the Most High could have put me in. And I had studied so many different religions and learned so much about. I had read the Bible 7 times. I had read the Quran once, all from beginning to end. I had pushed and pushed and pushed to push inside of this. And once again, going back to that head injury, like a person, they would say, has a head injury and comes out a servant, can play an instrument, can do this, can do that, can speak another language. Bro, I learned 4 different languages, but I didn't come fluent in anything. I just wanted to educate. I became a sponge, and people were seeing that. I read the dictionary for 4 years. Every day I took 3 to 5 words out of it, wrote the word down, the definition, wrote it 5 times a piece. And like my moms used to make me do this for spelling contests. I would have to write them 10 times. And I aced my spelling test every time because of what she had taught me. And so I sat there and I was doing this. And I looked up to Malcolm X for certain things that he had done, but I had never felt my spirit called to be a Muslim, so I never took my kalima shahada. But I had learned that I had done Ramadan twice, and I had learned so much in the Hadith and learned more about Jesus inside of the Quran than I did in the Bible. But I still felt like Christianity was what worked for me, just not the same Christianity that is the slavery Christianity. I'm just not for that. But I learned more about the Bible and It made me question a lot of things, but it also answered a lot of questions. And so when I hit the streets, I had anecdotes to talk about. I had icebreakers to communicate with. I was able to articulate things in ways that people were not used to, especially when they looked at someone that had did over two
Right.
decades
In
behind prison
prison,
walls.
yeah.
They're like, dang, there's something different about this kid. And so I used that to my advantage. Instead of trying to use yes, sir, and yes, ma'am to manipulate, it's who I am.
What does your life look like today?
So I have, the day after I left the halfway house on August 18th, I was at an interview August 19th at Illuminate USA. My uncle Danny Crease has a barbershop on the east side, and he was cutting a guy's hair that worked there. And he let me speak to him, and the guy ended up getting me the opportunity. And so I went in and I told him, I said, I put on my application if I had felonies or not. I said, I will explain if I'm getting an interview. And so at that interview, I told him, I have 14 felonies.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, do you have warehouse experience? I was the only person in a suit. That was what was crazy to me. And I was in a Goodwill suit. And that man seen that. He seen something different. I handed him my resume.
Mm-hmm.
I have all kind of accolades. But he was like, do you got warehouse experience? I had just worked at a warehouse for 3 days.
Yeah.
So I said, yes, sir. He said, you'll be seeing the offer letter within a week. And I got a job making $26 an hour working at this solar panel manufacturing company.
That's awesome.
And so it began that journey. My older cousin, Molly Horston, and Lee Horston, they let me move into my aunt's house that I had initially moved into when I was 3 years old. But she had passed away a year before I came home. They let me move in there for 6 months and begin my journey. Not necessarily like she didn't make me pay rent,
Right.
but she made me take care of the bills, clean the place, keep the stuff together, and man, she saved my life. Like she poured into me and my little cousins. She has 2 daughters, and Jasmine, she paid one of the bills for me, and then her youngest daughter is Jordan Horston, who's in the WNBA, who went to Afrocentric, and she sent me money and stuff. Like, they came to the halfway house to visit me. Like, my own mother and father didn't come to visit me, man, but they did, and my ex-girlfriend, she was there, man, in a lot of ways, but we have parted since I didn't come home for relationships, man. I didn't come home for sex, man.
Right.
I came home to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, life happened, but I started working there, and I had also went to Ohio Means Jobs, and I had applied for a grant to get my CDLs. And so the opportunity came that I was approved for the grant. While I had started working at this company gave me, I went to put in my 2-week notice. They said they had never seen nobody work like I did. I came in there every day and worked as if it was my first day. I was so grateful to have a job, and then making $26 an hour when these people were talking about $14, $15, $16 an hour. I'm like, no, I'm worth more. I don't know, you don't think I am, but I think I am. And so I got that particular job, and I went in to put my 2-week notice in, and they called me back in and said, Dion, we are not going to accept your 2-week notice. We're going to let you go get your CDLs and then come back if you so choose.
That's cool.
And so this company, which is a new company, it's only been out 2 years as of February, in Pataskala, was willing to give me opportunity on top of opportunity. And so I left to go get them, and circumstances happened, dealing with blood pressure and stuff. And so I wasn't able to get my CDLs, but they sent that money back to Ohio Means Jobs. When I went back to tell them just thank you, they're like, hold on, now you can apply for another grant. I'm like, man, I can't leave this job again.
Yeah.
And so I stayed with that job. I ended up opening up a motivational speaker company called Motivators in Action. And I started pushing the narrative of showing no matter what you've been through, if you are alive right now hearing this, then nothing's been strong enough to take you out.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go speak at Ohio State's criminal justice class when I had graduated from a program in prison called the Prison Fellowship. Uh, I graduated valedictorian, and a gentleman named Richard Swagger, he told them, and I was something different, to come see me. And they brought a film crew, and they took pictures of me speaking at Ohio State and put me in their newsletter. Every organization that I ended up going to ended up putting me in their newsletters as Ohio success story or something along those lines. I started taking people to these organizations that had helped me, including a woman that I had started talking to after 5.5 months of going without. She was the first woman that asked me for my number. And her strength is what I needed, because I was just gonna keep doing me, staying focused in on
Mm-hmm.
me. But she was alcoholic, and I was just on something different. And so I accepted her where she was at, and we started the journey together. But I was buying her 3 to 4 Four Locos every day while I'm going to classes and stuff, and she's in the car drinking, passing out, watching TikTok. And so it had eventually come to a head where I had to tell her, like, either you go to rehab or you get out of my house.
Yep.
And she did. I took her to Lighthouse, and last Wednesday, she completed her full year
Wow.
program after going to the detox center for 21 days and then starting that year program. She became a year sober on April 7th.
That's cool.
I took her to the same organizations, Alvis 180. She got her forklift, her OSHA 10, and her flagger certification. She now just finished her peer support training today. Her 40 hours of in person. She started GED last week. We've been together, man, since August of 2024. The longest relationship I ever had. And she has 2 daughters that she had lost custody of due to her alcoholism. And now I bought her, you know what I mean, an iPhone and stuff. And now she FaceTimes with her daughters every week, every Friday. And she has created a different narrative for her family, for her children to see. We have been on a journey together. When we left my aunt's house, I moved into a townhome, took her with me, and my first place ever having in my name besides cell phones and pagers. And my church, a gentleman, Ernest Hyatt, he gave me a car from Lindsay Honda. He a manager at Lindsay Honda, and heard my story when I spoke at my church and said he wanted to help me on my journey. Like I said, favor ain't fair, man. God has made ways out of no ways for me. And so I just kept pushing.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do what I've done so much in my past, is get help and then smack people in the face with my actions when
Right.
they don't meet up with that standard. I always told people, don't listen to my talk. I know how to lie. 48 Laws of Power taught you so many manipulative things. But I said, I want you to watch my walk. Watch what I do. And so I just been pushing. I left ended up leaving my townhome and getting a 3-bedroom house, man, in Reynoldsburg, man. Got a hot tub on my back, which I got a pool I'm waiting to put up.
That's cool.
And
That's
I
awesome.
push.
That's what it takes.
I wrote a book, and it's called The Green Print, From Confinement to Refinement. Cost me $3,600 to publish this, man. And because of that job I got, I kept working it, and I ended up getting promoted and to the maintenance department, making $33.50 an hour. And I spent the money on this.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a 401k insurance, something I had never had. I had never kept a job long enough to have none of this.
Yep.
So instead, they said, we'll match 4%. I said, all right, I started with 4, then I went up to 7. I got promoted, I went up to 10. I said, this my life is different. I ended up getting a life insurance policy for myself. And then I got a $1 million business policy for my business. I'm like, man, listen, man, all them books I read behind prison walls, all them people I learned from, I started applying that knowledge. I started investing in stock, in Bitcoin. I push myself every day to learn.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing in on the bull crap, because the bull crap is everywhere around us. I want to be the best version of myself. I teach at my church when I can. I taught a class. I was a part of teaching a class that I had taken in prison. And to be able to do that out here was beyond, I was so grateful to be a part of that. So the very first place I really got to go into was CRC. And I went to an AA meeting and gave my lead. The place that gave me an emergency ride out, that a correction officer worked at, was the very first place that let me come in and carry the torch. Then I went to CBCF, and then I went to Marion Correctional Institution just a few days ago, a place that I spent majority of my bid at, that helped me grow up. And I was able to see staff members and inmates that I was once there with, and to show them what success is possible when we put, for me, a higher power, recovery, and discipline in front of my own selfish nature.
Your story is nothing short of a miracle, dude. I mean, to do 20 years and come out and do what you're doing is unheard of. I mean, really.
And
So.
I definitely, I love hearing that type of stuff, but I know it's not me, man. Like, I say I a lot, and I try to work on that, but it's by God's grace, man, because I'm not who I once was. Like, I don't even remember that kid the same way that people look at me. And, you know, I'm still dealing with something that a lot of us have is PISD, post-incarceration stress disorder. I come out and I want my back against the wall. I don't know if people are running game on me. Why are you talking to me? What is the things that are going through your head when you see me? Do you just see a felon? Do you think I'm about to take your purse? You don't know who I am, but do you imagine who I am? You still deal with a lot of different things. And so a lot of times I find myself by myself at my house, building around myself and pushing away from individuals that I first had once talked to when I came home. I started to see that we're not on the same path.
Sure.
And we're definitely not on the same intellectual level. And it wasn't that I was more educated than you. It's just that I was focused more on me, because I didn't have bills. I didn't have children. I didn't have a lot of the things that a lot of people out here had, that I didn't give them opportunity to focus in on them. And now I try my best to be the change I want to see. I started another company called the Path Makers, and I want to bring people that have passions but don't have necessarily resources or networking skills to bring their dreams to life, as long as they are true about what they want. And so I started a mentorship. I have the program designed, and I want to just continue to help myself be of service, because I am nobody if I don't. I know what it looks like when I'm chasing a high. One thing I had said to you earlier was that my last bunkie was a Hispanic brother that got out a week after I did. While I was in that halfway house, not 2 weeks in, he called me from Mexico. It said, my family waiting on you in a city outside of Columbus. I said, bro, I told you, man. I got to try this the right way first.
Right.
I ain't heard from him since. I'm grateful for who I am today. Now, I'm over 3 years sober and clean. And that's only by God's grace. The higher power that I choose to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that happen on a consistent basis, I could have never imagined. Man, I just bought a Benz 2 weeks ago, man.
It's wild. It's wild the things we can do when we apply ourselves.
Yes, living the promises.
Yeah.
Bill and Bob, they created something for us. And he said, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path.
Correct.
You know, I definitely take a lot of stuff. He said to use these steps in all our affairs. Throughout, I have problems. Don't get me wrong. I don't want that to be misconstrued. But I don't have to do it with drugs and alcohol.
Right.
And I see when I push myself and I push the people around me, they have the potential to push me to continue to be the best version of myself. Because some days I just want to get up and not go to work or not do this or not deal with people. And it's like, hold on, man. He said to love thy neighbor as thyself. But when I was young, I didn't love myself, so I didn't give a damn about my neighbor.
Right.
Now I do know somebody named Dion Maurice Evans that I love. And now I do love my neighbor. Now I think about, oh, I'm calling the police. Someone trying to break in that house. Now I want the best for the people around me. And I want to speak to that person that may be trying to break in that house. And maybe we can help you. Before we came here, we went to Dairy Queen and dropped off my girlfriend's niece. And a man come up and he said, hey, man, hey, can you help me with something? I'm like, yeah, what's up? I'm already thinking in my head he about to ask for some money, but I didn't have no cash. I just had a credit card. And he pulled out a note and said, can you buy me something to eat? I said, bro, what you want? What you want to eat, man?
Yeah.
That's me today. Without hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend said, man, I'm so proud of you. I'm like, I don't need you to be proud of me. I need you to be staying that narrative. Because when I'm not humble, when I'm not grateful, I'm that piece of shit. I'm that cancer. I'm that demon in the dark. I don't want that.
Keep doing what you're doing, dude. You're absolutely fucking killing it. And you know, for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Congratulations on your success. I know you'll keep it up.
Yeah.
Plug your book some more. Why don't you talk about where you can get it and stuff?
Oh yeah. Like I said, you know, I wrote this book. I wrote this book a lot while I was at work. I was typing on my laptop, telling my journey for what I just talked about since I've been home, since I got to that halfway house. And I talk about all the organizations that I went to. I asked the people that I put inside this book if I could put them in it to speak on my journey so that they can go talk to them. And gain help, whether it's at the Urban League, the Arts Program, the CEO Program, OJPP, Miss Shauna Saunders, different individuals that captivated me and were willing to look at me for more than a crime or my last bad decision. And so you can go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I have a website, Motivators in Action.
Okay.
That's inspire@miaohio.com. And I'm selling on Facebook. I like Ludacris, man. He sold 1 million copies out of his LP, out of his trunk, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be able to do that. They're getting ready to put my advertisement up in Times Square.
That's cool.
A picture of me with my book in New York, man. Like I've been home 20 months.
It's insane.
20 months ago, I had a metal box, a 2.4 box.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got a 3-bedroom house. And I don't say that to boast or brag, man. I want you to see, man, that if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I really be appreciating the people like you. You put me on this platform when I first had came out. And I don't know if you knew, you had heard me speak somewhere else, you know what I mean? At an AA convention. Mm-hmm. And I had heard you speak. And I hope that I did show you that I wasn't faking it. that I truly was who I said I was when
Yeah.
I sat here.
Yep.
You know, you inspired me. I didn't know when I walked in. I'm like, dang, man, they strapped. This is nice. You know what I mean? And I've been on multiple other podcasts, like the Tyro podcast, and different people have asked me to be upon that. But it was it was gratitude, man, when you text me and said, let's pod back.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, yeah, bro, when you need me. Like, I
We
appreciate
appreciate
you,
it.
man. And
Yeah.
I look up to your grind, man. Like I said, I'll be watching you. And you going in to speak other places. And I know it don't be always easy, man. You got a lot on your plate. And sometimes you just want to say, fuck all this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that's in them rooms that need to hear you. And that may be the same thing that keeps you going to see another day.
Yep.
And so I applaud you as well, man. I'm proud of you. And I thank you for giving me, man, a opportunity, man, to carry the torch.
Yeah.
Because that's all it's about to me.
No, you did great, dude. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you,
You're
bro.
fantastic, man. That's
Most
it.
definitely.
Thank you.